You've told yourself you're lazy, that you have no discipline, that you're just bad at managing your time. But none of that really holds up, because there are things you start without a second's hesitation. You don't need discipline to open up your phone. You don't need willpower to do the fun thing. You start those instantly. So the problem usually isn't with time, and it isn't simply a lack of discipline. If it were, it would slow you down on everything. But it doesn't. It only shows up on certain tasks. Which means the real question isn't why you're lazy, it's what's different about the tasks you avoid. The difference isn't the task itself, it's how the task makes you feel the second you go to start it. Look closely and you'll notice the thing you're pulling away from isn't the work, it's the feeling that shows up when you get near the work. The task may be unpleasant, but the feeling around it often becomes the larger obstacle. It's the cloud of discomfort around it that you can't stand. So you don't put off the task, you put off the feeling, and that changes what the fix even is. So watch what happens next. The feeling rises and you reach for something easier. You check your phone, you clean something, you suddenly decide to answer old emails. You tell yourself you'll start after lunch. And the instant you turn away, the discomfort drops. Gone. Immediate relief. That relief is the problem, because relief feels good, and your brain notices exactly what made it stop. So it files away a lesson. Avoiding worked. Do that again. And next time, the pull to escape comes faster and stronger. That's the trap. Every time you escape, you feel better for a few minutes, and you train yourself to escape sooner the next time. And the reason this is so hard to stop is that avoiding genuinely works. You're not failing to solve a problem, you are solving one, perfectly, every time. The bad feeling disappears the second you look away. Your avoidance has a flawless success rate. So this isn't a flaw in you, it's how all learning works. Anything that reliably stops a bad feeling gets reinforced in everyone. You just happen to learn it with your tasks. People in recovery know this pattern better than anyone. A substance took away discomfort fast, and the brain remembered exactly what made the bad feeling stop. Procrastination uses a similar learning principle. Behavior that quickly removes discomfort gets reinforced. It's a smaller, everyday version of the same escape. Meanwhile, the task hasn't moved, it's still sitting there, and now it's a little bigger because the deadline's closer and you've added a day of dread to it. That's the trade you keep making. The relief is small and it's temporary. The cost is real and it keeps growing. Now, if procrastination is you avoiding a feeling, then the fix depends entirely on which feeling it is. And a task can bring up a lot of different feelings. It's often more than one at once, stacked together, which is part of why it feels so tangled. We'll walk the most common ones, but yours might be a mix, or something not in this list at all. The job is to find which feeling is actually driving the avoidance. The first, and maybe the most common, is the fear of it being judged, especially if you actually care about it. Think of the person with a brilliant business idea they've been about to launch for 3 years. On paper, it could be huge, but the day they actually launch it, it stops being a dream that could be huge and becomes a real thing that might flop. That's the pattern. As long as it isn't finished, it can't be judged. It stays full of potential. The moment it's done, it can be measured against what you hoped it would be, and it might fall short. This is perfectionism, and from the inside, it doesn't look like high standards. It looks like not starting. If the work never becomes real, it can never disappoint you. The fix isn't to care less, it's to separate making from judging. Give yourself permission to do it badly first, and judge it later, if at all. The second feeling hides as laziness, but it isn't. You genuinely don't know what the first step is. Work on the report, sort out the finances, fix your health. Every one of those is a heading, a whole category with no actual first move inside it. Your brain has nothing physical to grab, so it stalls, and the stall feels like not caring. Let's use cleaning the garage as an example. You stand in the doorway, look at a mountain of stuff, and feel that heavy stall. It isn't that you don't want to clean a garage, it's that cleaning the garage doesn't tell you what to physically do first. The fix is to shrink it down until there's an obvious physical action. Not fix your health, put your shoes by the door. A step so clear you don't have to think about it. The third feeling is boredom. Some tasks just offer nothing back. No interest, no stimulation, nothing while you're doing them. Think of an expense report. or typing a long list of numbers into a spreadsheet. It isn't hard, it isn't scary, it's just mind numbing, and there's nothing in it pulling you forward. So almost anything else wins. For boredom, you either make it more interesting with music, a timer, a bit of a game, or you tie it to something you actually care about. So the dull thing points at a goal that isn't dull anymore. The fourth is overwhelm, and it's usually a trick of scale. You take a handful of small, separate tasks and stack them in your head into one towering mountain. Do my taxes feels like Mount Everest, but do my taxes was never one task. It's a pile of small ones. Find last year's return. Open the software, enter one form. Each of those is a hill you could walk up without even thinking. So stop staring at the summit. Everest is just what a row of ordinary hills looks like when you fuse them together and look up. Take one hill at a time, and the mountain becomes what it always was, a list of small, doable things. And the fifth is resentment. Somewhere underneath, you don't feel like you chose this, so a part of you digs in and refuses, and you call it procrastination. Maybe it's a chore you feel got dumped on you, or a project you think is pointless. You're not too tired to do it. A part of you is refusing, because it doesn't feel like it's your choice. The autonomy was stripped from you. The delay is a small act of rebellion. And that one's worth taking seriously. Sometimes the honest move is to reconnect it to a reason you do care about. And sometimes it's to admit the task shouldn't be on your list at all. Whatever the feeling is, almost everyone tries to solve it one of two ways. They wait to feel ready, or they wait until a deadline gets close enough to scare them into moving. The second one is why people swear by deadlines, and why some people even invent fake ones. A deadline can work because it finally makes the pain of not doing it bigger than the pain of doing it. The research on it is mixed, but notice what it really means. You're using panic as your on switch. You've been taught that motivation comes first and then you act. Feel like it, then do it. For the things you avoid, that order is backwards. The readiness you're waiting for shows up after you start, not before. You act first, and the motivation follows the action. This is the basis of a real treatment for depression, where you take the action before the feeling shows up and create the conditions for mood and motivation to begin catching up. This matters especially in depression, where thinking your way out often doesn't work. You can't reason yourself into feeling better when the feeling is that heavy. But you can get out of bed, take a shower, brush your teeth, do 10 jumping jacks. The action comes first, and movement can give mood and motivation a chance to catch up. And there's a reason it works. That cloud of dread around the task is almost always worse than the task itself. The dread is a prediction, and it's a dramatic one. The doing is usually fairly ordinary. You have felt this. 10 minutes in, and you realize that it isn't even that bad. And almost every time, you finish and think the same thing. Why did I make that so hard? The dread lasted 3 days. The task took 20 minutes. The waiting was the whole ordeal, not the work. Which is why the first action has to be small, absurdly small. The point of the first step isn't progress, it's to break the avoidance, to get you through the haze and touching the task once. After that, staying is far easier than starting was. Because a task you've actually started can pull at you differently than the one you haven't. Once it's open, an unfinished task can create a mental tug that makes returning easier. So here are the tools. Notice that each one targets a feeling, not your character. 1. Turn the goal into the next physical action. A goal is an outcome. Your body can't do an outcome. It can only do a movement. So name the movement. 2. Separate making from judging. Give yourself full permission to make a terrible first version. A bad draft can be fixed. A blank page can't. And once you've allowed it to be bad, perfectionism has nothing left to stop you with. 3. Change your surroundings instead of fighting them. If the easy escape is one tap away, you'll lose that fight most days. So put your phone out of reach before you start. Willpower is unreliable, especially when you have to keep using it against an easy reward. So the smartest move isn't winning the fight against temptation all day. It's setting things up so the fight never has to even start. 4. When you're stuck, work out whether to zoom out or zoom in. If the task feels pointless, zoom out. Connect it to why it matters, the real reason underneath it, until the point comes back into view. If the task feels enormous, zoom in. Ignore the whole thing and find the one small piece right in front of you. Meaning for when it's empty, a next step for when it's too big. 5, and use this one carefully, picturing the cost of not acting. For some people, honestly imagining where continued avoidance leads makes the distant cost feel real enough to move now. But here's the warning, and it is important. If you're anxious or hard on yourself, this can certainly backfire. Picturing failure can actually add more dread, and more dread means more avoidance. So use it only if you lean toward comfortable and disconnected from the consequences. If you lean toward anxious, I'd skip it completely and stick to the gentler tools. And then a second thing happens, one that has nothing to do with the task anymore. And this is what turns a bad afternoon into a bad month. After you procrastinate, you feel bad about it. Guilty, ashamed. You call yourself lazy, useless, a mess. And look at what that shame actually is. It's another bad feeling. And it's a big one. Which means you now have something new that you want to escape. So you do the one thing that reliably makes a bad feeling stop. You avoid again. You escape the shame the same way you escaped the task. That's what turns one skipped afternoon into a month. The shame about procrastinating becomes another reason to procrastinate. So being harder on yourself doesn't fix it, it fuels it. Every time you beat yourself up, you make more of the exact feeling that drives the avoidance. Follow the logic all the way. The whole cycle runs on escaping bad feelings. Shame is a huge bad feeling. So piling shame on yourself doesn't push you to do better, it just hands the cycle more of exactly what it feeds on. The research here points in a surprisingly consistent direction. People who respond to slips with more self-compassion tend to procrastinate less, not more. It's not because kindness lets them off the hook. It's because they aren't carrying a second load of self-punishment on top of the task. There's only one thing to face, not two. Self-compassion isn't making excuses. It's refusing to pile a second problem on top of the first. You slipped, most people do. Now just take the next small step. Not all delay is procrastination. If you've actually engaged a problem and then stepped away, your mind keeps working on it in the background, and you often come back with something better. But that only counts if you started. Sitting down to watch television before you've opened the thing at all isn't incubation. That's a plain avoidance with a better excuse attached. And not every break is procrastination either. Rest you actually choose, with no task you're fleeing underneath it, is just rest. The tell is whether there's a feeling you're running from. If your procrastination is heavy and tangled up with depression or real anxiety, these tools still help, but they aren't the whole answer, and that's worth working on it with someone. What you called laziness was often something else. You were escaping a feeling. The escape worked well enough to become a habit. The task was only one part of the problem. The fear, boredom, confusion, or overwhelm wrapped around it made it feel heavier than it was. And every time avoidance brought relief, your brain learned to avoid it again. So the first skill isn't forcing yourself, it's noticing. Catch the feeling as it rises and name it. Fear, confusion, boredom, overwhelm, resentment, or whatever is actually there. Then take one small action while the feeling is still there. You don't have to make it disappear first. You just have to move before avoidance decides for you. And when you slip, because you will, skip the part where you tear yourself apart. Shame only gives you another feeling to escape. Just notice it, turn back, and begin again. Procrastination begins to loosen when you stop treating the feeling like a command. Name it, stay beside it, take one small step anyway. Each time you do, you teach yourself that discomfort is something you can carry, not something you have to escape. If this video helped you, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you.